There's one more that's drawing a little traction. And
Cam Newton?
No. That it has really just been touched upon with kid gloves. And it was Russell Wilson.
Oh, I did want to get into that.
Want to get into it now?
Yeah, let's just jump into it now. Yes, the Russell Wilson situation is very interesting because I don't know if a lot of people even remember this, but last year he almost was gone from Seattle.
I do not.
So what happened was there was an interview that Russell Wilson did, kind of like what just happened this year, where he was just talking about what was next for his career. And he's just talking. And again, I think a lot of people take what he says out of context, because if you actually watch him talk about things, he never really is talking in a negative light to Seattle. He loves Seattle. He loves the situation that he's in. He loves playing there. And it's a good situation. I mean, the Seattle's a great team. I mean, they're perpetually in the playoffs every single year. And they play fantastic football. So I'd never think that he's at odds with the front office or anything like that. I just think that he's looking to have more success. I mean, he won a Super Bowl as a second year. I think he really was. I mean, he had, what was it, the second year he ended up winning the Super Bowl? It's the second season.
Yep.
And then goes back his third season, loses to Tom Brady and the Patriots. But
did exactly what Patrick Mahomes did.
Literally just exactly what Patrick Mahomes did. So at the end of the day, I really think that he loves being in Seattle. But last year, there was an interview where he was talking about just what his future was and what he was looking forward to. And it came out in that conversation that he was kind of thinking about his life with his wife, Sierra, and everything like that. And then his deal was up, or it might have been 2 years ago. His deal was coming up where he was going to get a new big deal. And then it sounded like if they weren't willing to sign him to a long-term deal for quite a bit of money, then he was ready to move on. And Sierra had come out and started talking about he wanted to go to the Giants and they would love to go to New York and be in that market.
I do remember that.
Yeah. So I think it was 2 years ago, not just one. So that was the big topic of conversation a couple of years ago. And I was just like, well, this might be the beginning of what now is the quarterback carousel this year, is where big time quarterbacks who have had a lot of success, they are really good quarterbacks, might start calling their own shot and calling their own number and saying, hey, I'm kind of want to move on from this situation. Because for the longest time, the NFL was, you got drafted by this team, that is your team for your career. Unless you're horrible, we will move off of you after your rookie deal. But at the end of the day, it was the team's decision if you were getting moved or not. And it was huge when Kirk Cousins ended up saying, well, I'm going to deal with these 2 franchise tags, and then you're going to have to make a decision on if you want to keep me or not. And they ended up saying, well, you can move on. And now he's in Minnesota. That was the first big one that I've seen. And then that's a lie. Denver Broncos, Peyton Manning moving on from Indianapolis. That was huge. But it doesn't happen a lot where you have a generational talent at the quarterback position move on from a team.
Right.
So this is what everybody was looking forward to, and seeing that from Russell Wilson. And now this year comes out and is talking about how he wants to have some say in what's going on with the decision making for the personnel decisions moving forward. And it sounds like the Seattle Seahawks were pissed that he's talking to people about this. So
how dare them?
Yeah,
this is how dare them even get upset. I mean,
for me, it's just like, I don't care that. Like, I don't think that an organization needs to have you sit down in the office with them to make any decisions or have final say on what's happening with the free agent market or anything like that. No quarterback should have that power. I don't believe, even if you're Tom Brady, you shouldn't have that power.
Right.
But at the end of the day, exit meetings. Hey, what do you think is going on with the team? What is your idea? What do you think we need to do moving forward? We have so much money invested in you, and we want to win football games.
I got a real basic question. I don't even think these organizations ask this. What receiver would you like to throw to? Like literally. Like,
well, I'm saying, like, so I get what you're saying there, and that would be a great question.
Like, I'm certainly this guy knows what he would want or need.
Yeah.
On his team, and if nothing else, at least an open door or an avenue or open or a little space to have that communication and that conversation.
I think that should always be a conversation with not with every quarterback. Like Mitch Trubisky definitely doesn't need to be in the room for that. No,
we're talking like you said, generational.
Tom Brady,
talents.
Russell Wilson, Aaron Rodgers, Pat Mahomes, Deshaun Watson. These guys should be. Ask me.
A Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray, maybe. Yeah. I think he needs a couple more years to get into that conversation, but
yes, that kind of talent.
Talent, yes. So like just ask the question. Just what do you think? Like, what direction would you like to see things go? Like, or not even just asking them that question. Bring them in and say, hey, this is what we're thinking. We think that we need to make some improvements on the defensive side of the ball. We definitely need to protect you a little bit more, and maybe a receiver here or there. And we can see what we can do with that. What are your thoughts on that? And then let them say, hey, this is what I'm seeing from the field. I'm getting rushed every single play. I can't see anything. Can we get a couple blockers in here? Get a couple more linemen to protect me. And then at the end of the day, if we want to move on and start talking about defense, that's when I would say that. But for me, the number one thing is to get me a better offensive line. Just that type of conversation, that would open the door and make sure that you're keeping your quarterback happy. And I don't understand why this would be such a big deal for guys of that caliber. Those 5 names we named, right? Those guys, why would that shouldn't at the end of the day ever be such a hard thing to do at the end of the year. Just saying, what are your thoughts on what we think the plan should be? And then at the end of the day, you do what you want because that's your job. You're the GM. You make the personnel decisions. This is what I'm thinking. I can't be pissed off at you if you come ask me my opinion and you go a different direction because you at least asked me my opinion.
I mean, that on top of even if as an organization, you're actually open to the idea of some type of form of feedback from your quarterback. Yeah. And like that, you're really going to invest that information and not just, it was glad that you shared that. Thanks for talking. And then you just move on from it. Like, that is a real process that you're really using this to utilize your decision is really a part of your decision-making process. Yeah. But that's not, obviously from what we've been seeing across the league, that's really not the case in the NFL. Why that's the case, I don't know, but
I don't think a lot of quarterbacks want to make waves like that. And I get it. I guess it seems like I think the NFL needs to wake up and realize that we're not in the 70s anymore. This isn't shut up and do your job anymore. These guys have platforms. They have power. I mean, and at the end of the day, I know that you guys have 51% of the revenue share and the players only have 49%, whatever the actual number is, 48.5% or something like that. But at the end of the day, these guys are doing so much for your franchise, much more than what your name is doing. A lot of people don't know the names of these GMs and the front office workers and all that stuff. They know Russell Wilson. They know Tom Brady. They know Aaron Rodgers. Like, these are the faces of the league right now, and they should have some say in their own legacies. So at the end of the day, just asking that simple question, what do you think about our plan? What are your thoughts? This shouldn't be that big of a deal. So I hate the fact that it becomes like, oh, Seattle hated that he came out and said that, or Aaron Rodgers situation. Why did he have to say something like that and make this such a big hubbub and all this stuff? It's just like, because it's his legacy. You guys have failed him since the 2013 Super Bowl. You guys got there and you haven't been back. Yes, he has some thoughts on what decisions you guys have made over the last few years. You guys can be butthurt about it all you want, but you're not gonna move off of Aaron Rodgers, are you? So,
Not at all.
which they might. We don't know because they ended up drafting Jordan Love.
Maybe now. I mean, seriously, whatever that was about.
Yeah, but I mean, I didn't mean to budge in on your Russell Wilson thing.
No.
So you have a lot. I know you have a lot of thoughts on him.
I had thoughts. I just thought I found it interesting that all of a sudden his name came up, and now he's not too happy about all the sacks and the hits he's taking. I'm like, that's interesting because you've been taking nothing but sacks and hits from day one, and avoiding them, and and making plays and cooking like Russell Wilson does, and it's just interesting because I was figuring like, man, if you're gonna complain about this, you like 2 years too late, but like where you could have.
Well, but that's the thing. It's because we were living in a shut up and play league, and I'm just like, at the end of the day, like, yes, Russell Wilson has been the consummate. This is the team's captain, and he is the kind of conduit between the front office and the head coaches, between the players and all that. He's been like a consummate professional in that respect. He is kind of followed lockstep with what the organization wanted him to do. And at the end of the day, it's like, wait a minute. He's done all this for you, and you guys really haven't put together an offensive line to protect him really all that much. Still, Tyler Lockett's his number one option. Yes, you went out and got DK Metcalf, but now Tyler Lockett's fallen off a little bit, so he still doesn't have all that much. And then you have these running backs who are perpetually injured. Chris Carson and Rashad Penny and whoever else is on that running back chart. They suck. They're never on the. Not that they're bad. They are really good actual running backs. They just never can play.
DJ Dallas.
They can never play, and that's the issue. Is your best ability is availability, and those running backs are never there. So at the end of the day, he really doesn't have too many weapons.
Not at all. And that's what I was finding interesting because not so much that he said something, it's that he finally said something. That's
I was happy about it.
Wow, you finally saying something. Like,
and did you actually? I ask you, did you listen to the interview?
Nope, just read the excerpt.
So, and this is the thing that kind of pisses me off about it more is because Russell Wilson tried so hard not to say anything. He was trying to be Seattle's perfect little soldier still. And he was, because he came out and they were like, well, Dan Patrick was asking him and grilling him basically like, do you, Russell Wilson, feel like you should have more say in this? And he like just didn't answer the question. He went completely left field and was just like, well, I feel like there's some things that, I mean, we talk about it and I say what I feel, and it's pretty well known how I feel about what we need to do and this, that, the other, and all this stuff. All go Hawks, just everything that he could say right about it. And then Dan Patrick comes right back and he's like, you didn't answer my question. And he's grilling him. And he's just like, well, do you, Russell Wilson, feel like you need this, that, and the other? And it was after 2 or 3 times he asked the question, Russell Wilson finally was like, well, yes, I feel like I would want to be in that situation. That isn't the current situation with us in Seattle right now. But I feel like I should. And that it took him a couple of tries to get that answer out of him. And I feel like people should be more upset with Dan Patrick and grilling him because honestly, Russell Wilson didn't want to answer that question. Right. Even though he said what he felt, and yes, he came out and said it in a very political correct way. Seattle really shouldn't be upset with Russell Wilson in the slightest. He has done everything for them.
Not at all.
And for them to come out and try to, I know it's a PR thing and they've got to make it seem like he should be lockstep with everything that they're doing, and he should never question what the front office is doing. I get that that's what they're trying to do, but at the end of the day, he's not just your regular quarterback. He's not Matt Ryan. He's not one of these other guys that you can just kind of brush off. He's Russell Wilson. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks in the league right now.
And that's, again, further, and to add to that, which makes this a very interesting story, because the question is this going to become a thing? It's like, is this going to draw a rift between upper management and himself? Is this going to start to snowball into, before we know it, we got a Deshaun Watson situation here?
I think this has been snowballing. I think that's the whole reason why he he feels the way that he does is because even in that 2 years ago where he was trying to get a big deal from Seattle, he wanted some reassurance that they were behind him, and they were a little bit reluctant to do it. So he was like, well, screw it. I'll go to New York with my wife. Like I'll take my family where we would like to be. Oh, wow. We don't have to be in Seattle. We don't care about Seattle, like, which they do. Russell Wilson definitely loves Seattle, but at the end of the day, he loves his family and he loves his wife more. I will take and uproot my family to go to where we want to be.
Right.
And I'll go get money from them because they were definitely willing to pay it that year.
And as we said earlier, the Jets have a lot of assets.
Yeah. Well, Jets or Giants, either one of them would have done it. And this is before Daniel Jones. This is.
Well, I was saying, if we taking it, predating it, I mean, we just take it from the interview forward.
Yeah.
The Giants is, I don't know why, but seemingly were very committed to
Daniel
Jones for at least another year. And
but I mean, I think that's before. I mean, I feel like any of these teams, Deshaun Watson's available to you. Say, hey, you have something that we want. Everybody is going to be like, well, exactly what is that? Because I want Deshaun Watson or I want Russell Wilson, like, or even because this is kind of the same topic with Aaron Rodgers. These are fantastic quarterbacks who are having major issues with their team making decisions, and if anybody comes knocking at their door, they're going to be listening. I mean, these are once in a lifetime talents at the quarterback position. It's hard to find guys like this, and then if they're not happy with the situation that they're in, there's going to be a lot of teams that are going to be doing are going to be willing to do whatever it takes to make their situation desirable.
Right.
So I think at the end of the day, a lot of these organizations need to wake up and realize that, again, this is not a shut up and play league anymore. Right. These guys have power. They know what their worth is. You don't have a league without these guys. I'm not talking about some of these lesser kind of mid-range talent guys. These superstars are superstars. They have brands of their own. And like I said, these organizations need to wake up and realize that sooner rather than later, because at the end of the day, if they don't, a lot of these teams are going to be missing out on this talent moving forward.
What makes this much interesting, is looking at the success of what Seattle did in this past season in relation to what they've done probably in all of Russell Wilson's career. They actually finished, not actually, but they finished 12-4, and that was the best finish that they had since 2014, since they've been in the Super Bowl back in those days. And the year before that, they were 13-3. These were so he's tied his second best season, of all, of his career, just in this past year, which is, I'm only saying that to say, I didn't even realize that based on how poorly they played down the stretch. Yeah. But yet it was only 4 losses. I mean, but they played poorly, but it didn't necessarily, accumulate into a loss. It was just poor play. Yeah. And especially as in comparison to how they played in the first half of the season. Yeah. But to finish 12-4 and have another disappointing, playoff performance and coming up short. And this guy is now, entering into his his 9th season?
Yeah, 9th or 10th.
10th season. Wow. Yeah. Going into his 10th season. Yeah, I've said that. That's why I brought his name up, because I'm like, okay, that's a legitimate story, regardless of how much traction they got. I think this is not going to go away. Yeah, personally,
I don't think that they're going to do anything this year for sure. I think he's coming back to Seattle. They're going to have a conversation. They're going to try to mend this over. I believe Pete Carroll is going to ask him what he thinks. I think this is going to be hopefully the start of them beginning to bring him in a lot more, and just saying, hey, what are your thoughts? What are your ideas on what we need to do moving forward? But if they don't, if they really are kind of, like I said, butthurt about him coming out and talking about the situation where he's trying to still give you guys a lot of credit, then at the end of the day, I mean, if it's me, man, Seattle, you can miss me with that. Like I'm done. Like I will go elsewhere. I will ask for a trade right now because if this is how you're going to feel and this is how you're going to treat me. I'm sorry. I have a lot more worth, and if other teams will take my thoughts into consideration then.
And he had career highs this year in multiple categories, which,
And they also fired the offensive coordinator who started the Let's Russ Cook thing. So that at the end of the day
might be the beginning of the end.
Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of stuff
in Seattle, I should say. Yeah. Let me be clear.
He's got a lot of football left in my opinion. So I think if he does end up after this season, if things kind of fall back, especially because they're in a very, very, very tough division.
Sorry, this guy's numbers is phenomenal. Oh God, he is the beacon of consistency. Really. And move on. I'm sorry. I was just looking over.
No, like I said, I mean, he's been fantastic, but it's going to be really hard for Seattle to kind of make a case to keep him. If
Chicago Bears is looking at this.
I hope they are too. Oh God, I would love Russell Wilson in Chicago.
I would trade everything.
I can't even get my hopes up on that.
Everything. One player. We need to fill the rest of the roster on both sides of the ball now. One player on an active roster.
Yeah, but what I was saying this is a very tough division that Seattle's in. I mean, you got an up and coming Arizona Cardinal team. San Francisco's coming back next year. They're going to get healthy. And they're possibly going to have a new quarterback. We can get into that.
That's going to be interesting. We don't have no idea who their quarterback's
The Rams have Matthew Stafford, so an upgrade at the quarterback position. And they've still got a fantastic team that made it to the playoffs this year and beat Seattle.
Great defense.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, you're really looking at this is the toughest division by far. And it's only getting better and better by every single year. So if Seattle doesn't kind of wake up and kind of take care of what they need to, and Russell Wilson decides he's like, oh, I'm done with you guys kind of treating me this way, Seattle's going to be kind of even though they were my sleeper, this team to make the playoffs and kind of make a run here,
right? They
might be a team that's going to be a sleeper to be out of the playoffs and kind of being in a full-blown rebuild in the next few years.
Agreed. Yeah. I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, another historic franchise that has, that's historic in the last 20 years, done fantastic things. They have an issue at the quarterback position. Cam Newton in New England. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, that was an interesting experiment that did not go very well at all. And I'm not sure who to point the finger at on this one. Because
there's a lot of things wrong this year. But I think we do need to take into consideration the fact that as a team, New England had 8 missing starters due to COVID all year long. They opted out for COVID, and a lot of those guys are on the defensive side of the ball for one. So it doesn't take away from how bad the offense was this year. But as a team, things would have looked, I think, a little bit differently if COVID wasn't a thing this year. So just getting into your thoughts, just take that into consideration.
Got it. So with that, did not help the situation whatsoever. But I think it's really it's clear today to say. I mean, we can wrap this up very quickly. Cam Newton is not going to be in New England next year, so they're not bringing him back, and I don't think he wants to come back. I'm not saying that to say that he played poor. This is what I mean, but I don't even know where to point the finger at what went wrong. I think it was just a bad fit all the way around. Like this is not a good match whatsoever. So it just needed to end, and it ended when the season ended, and I'm like, let's just move on, because with that, we still have to consider that they don't have a quarterback under contract yet again, because now Brian Hoyer, the backup, he's afraid. Now, I know I just said Brian Hoyer like he was not going to be the savior. Okay, so with that leaves the market of what is the market for Cam Newton, and what is his future going to be looking like? Well, I have a strong hunch it won't be New England, even if New England exhaust all their options and they try to circle back for some crazy reason. I just don't think that's where he wants to go. What's a good fit for him? Your guess is as good as mine.
I have no idea.
After this year, I was left with, I don't know where this guy fits in. Wow, this was a difficult question you asked me, because I mean, I couldn't take anything positive from what happened in New England on either from the organizational side, Bill Belichick side, or even Cam Newton side.
I don't know any quarterback that wants to go there, and I don't know any team that wants to take Cam Newton on.
It just was a lose-lose type of scenario at the end of it. Exactly, and that's how I feel. Like, could he? I mean. Man, I mean, I guess the fandom part of me would be like, I mean, heck, he would definitely be an upgrade in Chicago, but I don't know if he's a good fit in Chicago.
Well,
based on whatever Chicago's trying to do right now, because that's what I'm saying. Because last year I was all in.
My only thing is that I said this earlier, is like it felt like towards the end of the year, Mitch Trubisky was spinning the ball a lot better than Cam Newton was. Cam Newton, I don't know what's wrong with his arm anymore. Like I know he's taken a lot of hits. I know he's had a couple shoulder surgeries. I know he had the torn labrum or something like that. He had the foot injury a few years ago, but I mean, he's still running great. He's still one of the most mobile quarterbacks in the league, but his arm is the issue. And it's like, this is a quarterback position. The guy that throws the ball. I get that we want mobile quarterbacks that can move with their legs and all that stuff, but I need you to be able to throw the ball. And what I saw in New England did not sell it for me.
I didn't see him running up and down the field. I only seen him in the red zone running. And that's something. It was the weirdest play call I've ever seen in my life. Like, let's exploit his run game in the red zone on the 5-yard line. Like, you have 7 running backs on your active roster, basically, and you could throw any one of these guys in there to do that.
There is that, but there is also the fact that it's also hard for me to judge his throwing based off of New England, because their weapons this year were horrid. I'm sorry, you got an aging Julian Edelman. What else?
Not much, because even he was out for most of the year.
Like, Mohamed Sanu was the number one option for a long time. Or is he not even there anymore? I don't know. Who is next?
I don't know why when you said his name, I was thinking like he was there like for two weeks or something. Like I don't know. I don't think he was there long.
It doesn't matter. He doesn't. It's Mohamed Sanu. I don't know where he is now.
I couldn't list off right now. I'm drawing a blank of any of their receivers. Like, I forgot who they. Or Nick. They have something like Nick Harry or something.
No, Nikhil Harry.
Harry. See, I don't know any of these.
But Nikhil Harry is a bust, and that's the issue with. Then this is where a lot of people are having issues with Bill Belichick this year. Is obviously we're all comparing it to Tampa Bay and Tom Brady, and they go on to win a Super Bowl. That's a completely different situation. Let's stop comparing that. New England's in a rebuild. They lost their franchise quarterback. They didn't have a lot of their COVID. They had a lot of COVID opt-outs. Like, they were in a rebuild this year. This was a trial year for them to see what direction are we trying to make this organization go moving forward. Mm-hmm. Stop trying to compare them to New England. To Tampa Bay. Those are different situations. But at the end of the day, New England, I've had an issue with their drafting, because you've had all these compensatory picks. You have all of these like pretty decent first round picks that are in the 20s and whatnot. And then out of nowhere, you guys just keep missing on receivers, and that's the biggest thing that you need to figure out how to solve the quarterback issue with whether Cam Newton is the issue or you need to go find somebody else. And then you don't have anybody for whoever the quarterback's going to be to throw to. I mean, Nikhil Harry, like I said, it's been classified as a bust now. He just really has not shown up over the last 2 years. Julian Edelman is aging. He's getting older. He's not really able to separate like he used to, and he's kind of over the last few years missed a lot of balls, kind of like how Wes Welker was in his last few years in New England. I mean, he had that big drop in the Super Bowl.
He's going to Tampa soon.
Julian Edelman, yeah, probably. I think a lot of teams are, and this is something that was talked about on Pro Football Talk earlier, was the fact that, like, with the salary cap potentially going down to $180 million this next season, mm-hmm. there's going to be a lot of teams, a lot of guys that are going to be squeezed, like these mid-level guys, like your JJ Watts, like your Ndamukong Suhs, mm-hmm. and all these kind of like mid-level. They still bring a lot to your franchise, but they're not superstars anymore. Where is their market going to be? Are they, if they do get squeezed money-wise when it comes to it, they probably are going to start ring chasing. So there's going to be a lot of guys trying to get over to Kansas City, a lot of of guys trying to get over to Tampa Bay, and they're like, I feel like both the Super Bowl teams really are going to make out very nicely this offseason, because there's going to be a lot of guys willing to take pay cuts to go get a ring with these quarterbacks. Same thing with Buffalo, probably Baltimore as well. There's going to be those guys, Green Bay. There's going to be some teams that are going to kind of benefit from the salary cap going down, where a lot of guys are going to be willing to take some pay cuts.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, he had a horrible 2020 season.
I just really don't know where you go from here for Cam Newton. Like,
so big on him before the start of the season, but after watching this, oh my gosh, like value has. I mean, and I'm saying his value went down, but I think the play on Cam Newton would be this. Probably buy high as a backup. Just as an insurance policy. I think you'll get more bang for your buck to bring him in as a backup, and then he replaces your starter and comes in and has success, as opposed to starting him out trying to make him your French.
I just see that thought
past that threshold now.
I see that thought, but after seeing that with Chicago this year, I am done with the 2 quarterback system. I don't care for it. If you have, it's been said time and time again, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. So at the end of the day, I don't want, as an organization, I wouldn't want to do that, just because what's the benefit? If he doesn't work out, you got to go back to the starter. And so I wouldn't want to, and I don't know if he wants to do that. Maybe he retires. I don't know.
He has a choice at this point, but I mean, at the same time, we're talking, he technically has only had one bad season. It was just this one.
Yeah.
And he, of course, he came off an injury, but it's just,
he went to a team with no weapons.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, literally.
No weapons. I can't stress that enough. The skill positions for New England were absolutely horrid.
I can't even get over these numbers. These numbers are He has 12 rushing touchdowns, 8 passing touchdowns, and 10 interceptions.
He has more interceptions than passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
And again, that
12 rushing touchdowns, and probably leads the team in rushing touchdowns, which
probably leads the team in rushing.
Oh my gosh. Maybe. I mean, he had 592 yards, so I mean,
maybe not. Did Rex Burkhead break that?
I don't know. I really don't know. It doesn't matter.
But that kind of signifies it. Like that was a horrible situation this year. Like,
yes,
I feel bad for Cam Newton, because now his market is it's basically nothing, and we don't know if it was because Cam Newton is washed up, or if it was because New England had no weapons for him to throw to.
I'm going to go with no weapons. If you look closely at I'm not going to go through the numbers. I'm just saying his numbers are almost cut in half, like on average. So it's like, okay, he was playing. He played 15 games. He started 15 games. He just didn't play in one game. But if you look at his numbers, you would have thought he was out for half the season. It was what we seen. It was a disaster over there, an offensive disaster. They just could not get anything really generated on the offensive end. Yeah. Unless they was within that 5 to 10 yard range from the goal line in the red zone. I'm not even gonna say they were deadly. That's just where they were most effective. And that's as good as it got in New England. So with that, what the question remains, what will be the market? Okay, let's try to stab at this. Wow. You can jump in at any point, because I
got a list of teams over here and their quarterback situations, and
that makes sense. That if you had to say, okay, this makes sense.
Because that is maybe Denver takes him, and to replace Drew Lock. If not, okay. We can toy around with that. Why not? Yes, Denver. Oh gosh. If not Denver, I mean, that's a possible suitor. Because I mean, let me just go through the teams that have a quarterback changing situation that's almost imminent this year. We got 9 teams. We got Chicago, Dallas, Philadelphia, New England, the Jets, the Indianapolis Colts, Houston, Jacksonville, and then Denver.
Say that one more time.
Chicago, Dallas, Philadelphia, New England, the Jets, New York Jets, Indy, Houston, Jacksonville, and Denver. I mean, Chicago and Indy have better options outside of Cam Newton. You can go after Carson Wentz. You have the money for him. You can try to go after Dak Prescott. Everybody's trying to get Deshaun Watson right now. And then Dallas and Philadelphia. Dallas, it can re-sign Dak. They can get him on a long-term deal. They can franchise tag him. They can do whatever they want in that respect. They can go after somebody else like Deshaun. They have the assets to try to get Deshaun Watson. Houston, maybe he goes there after Deshaun Watson leaves. That's a possibility. But I don't know if he would want to go to a situation like that because that team is in complete shambles right now. Jacksonville, they're obviously going with Trevor Lawrence in the draft. That's a no-brainer. If they don't, oh God.
Right.
Jacksonville reclaims the title of the worst.
Dedicated to this one move. But let's move on.
If they don't do that, but yeah, and like you said, moving on. And then Denver's the last one.
Okay, and let me add at least one, maybe two teams to that list. I want to start with the possibility of the football team.
I was just looking at that. If I'm Washington,
and I'm only saying this is former coaches there.
No, and I get that, and I respect it. As a backup, yes, I'll take him there. But at the end of the day, I would much rather just run it back with Alex Smith being healthy and Taylor Heineke as a backup. I think that's a better situation than bringing in somebody who's a leader like Cam Newton.
And I'm saying that's why it's just on the list. It's a possibility. And really it's a stretch because the point being is if they really wanted him, they would have brought him. And they didn't. Yeah. They brought Kyle Murray instead. Kyler Murray. I'm sorry.
No.
Kyler Allen. Oh, Kyle Allen?
Kyle Allen. I don't know.
I had butchered this man's name up. It is Kyle Allen. I'm so sorry. I'm going to look. It's right here on my notes, dude. What did I call this dude? Kyler Murray. I made up a first.
They wish they had Kyler Murray.
Right. You need your Kyler Murray on your team.
Oh, man.
Okay. This is my other team. It's oh man, you talk about circling all the way back. Dallas. I could see him replacing Dak because Jerry Jones don't want to pay the money. You do not have to pay Cam Newton anything at this point.
Yeah, but I also think that and yes, they do have weapons, so it would be a better situation than New England. But I do think Jerry Jones is looking for a surefire. I need to get a Super Bowl before I die. Like
I don't believe that anymore. I've witnessed his last Super Bowl. I was a kid when he won his last Super Bowl. I'm nowhere near a child anymore. I mean, that was a lifetime ago, and I've watched off and on year after year of all the train wreck stories about why they can't win. I'm like, well, heck, before they won those three in the 90s, where were they then?
Yeah.
I mean, they was gone for obscurity for 20 years prior to that, so like, what are we talking about here? It's like, you take fair. Any franchise, I mean, you still have 5 titles. I'm like, in your franchise, that's second most. Like, what are you talking about? Even with a 30-year, that the NFL is fickle. Like, come on.
Okay.
If you won 1 title, you've done something.
I mean, that's totally fair. And I'm not saying
unfortunately, it's like the bar is not really as high as we'd like to make it in the NFL because that's how hard it is to win in the NFL. That's what I'm getting at.
But I think he's seeing the same thing that I've been saying is like Dallas honestly isn't America's team anymore. And I think he's trying to reclaim that moniker before he passes away.
They absolutely not America's team. It is a horrible nickname given to a team that's pretty outdated and predated. So with that, you are absolutely right. I just can't buy into Jerry Jones wants to win one before I don't see that. I'm like, because he's showing me nothing in these last 20 years. Like, okay, you showing me you're trying to be competitive. You showing me like, okay, we grabbed a couple of free agents. We got this one good guy. We got that one good great guy. But come on, people. Like, these are PR moves. Did you build your stadium? That stadium sold your team for 2 seasons without really. It did. It was like who was on the team who was the big name? Like Jason Witten and Tony Romo. Thank you. Okay. All right, Tony Romo. How many titles in the NFC Championships was he in again? Yeah, zero, none. Yeah. You never. One playoff win, one, or was it two?
And a major playoff loss.
I'm just making a point. Like, it's not a whole lot of success stories out of that. Where I'm sorry. Y'all should be grateful to get a Cam Newton. I'm just, come on. Like, I mean, if you losing Dak Prescott,
it's fair.
I guess it's for me. I'm at the point. I'm done with the excuses with Dallas. I'm done listening.
I have been.
What you like you said, Jerry Jones. Your attitude about it is much greater than his attitude. Like that should be what his attitude. I just don't believe that's his attitude.
Fair.
Because it just. Okay,
maybe I am giving him too much credit.
He's over here playing hardball with Dak Prescott. What?
Why?
What is your option, Jerry Jones? What else you got? What else what trump card are you holding that we don't see?
No, because
it can't be Andy Dalton.
That's totally fair.
I'm sitting there like, man, are you serious?
Y'all should convince me that Dallas would be a good fit for him from that view.
They don't get Dak Prescott. They need to be at the top. They should be at the top of the line trying to get the next quarterback out there. The next hot thing. It's just Dallas is that critical for Dallas.
Yeah.
Because we already can see their quarterback, just like Ezekiel, that 1-2 comp, they need those two to be successful. Without one or the other, I don't know how that's going to work. Now, we haven't really seen Dak without Zeke, but we have definitely seen Zeke without Dak. We haven't seen Dak without Zeke for a long period of time. Let me say that.
Yeah.
But we've seen how Zeke really opens up Dak's game for him and how they run their option plays, and they run it to a perfection, and I think they run that pretty well. When I'm looking at that type of skill set, that's a Cam Newton skill set. That's why I think it would be a good fit. I'm not saying he's the heir apparent or he's the replacement. I just think that it could be a viable option if they move on from Dak Prescott. With that being said, Jerry Jones would be an idiot to move on from this guy unless he's securing himself with Deshaun Watson. I don't see any other, or he's trading for Russell Wilson or I'm gonna say Tom Brady. That's kind of crazy.
There's no way that's happening.
That's not gonna happen.
Tampa Bay is not letting that happen.
Something of that caliber, it's like if you're not getting that kind of stuff, what are we talking about here? You ought to be grateful you getting Cam Newton.
Yeah.
So to your point, I like Denver. I do still on a whim. The football team, and I just want to say as a dark horse pick, Dallas.
Okay.
That's just I was just coming from an interesting point of view. But
I think Denver is really the only viable option for Cam Newton.
When you're right, he could just walk in and no questions asked, do your little press conference, yada, 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 then we just forget about you.
And it wouldn't be that big of a deal. Like it'll be a situation for Denver where they're just saying, well, we're trying something new. We're trying something different. If it hits, it hits. And it's for Cam Newton. It's, hey, we got some weapons here now. We got Phillip Lindsay. We've got Cortland Sutton. We've got a couple other receivers.
Jerry Jeudy. Yeah. Sorry. I forgot he's just got signed over there. Right.
He had a fantastic year, but you would have some more weapons. You'd have a weapon on that side of the ball, so you could try to do something in Denver. So it could try to resurrect his career one more time, and then after that, if it doesn't work out in Denver, I think he needs to call it quits at that point because there's nobody else who's going to be willing to do that experiment.
Not at all. And his market value. Come on, people.
Oh, I mean, he's anywhere he goes, it's going to be on a veteran minimum deal. Yeah, he's going to be on a 1 year. We're trying you out. You got to show us something to get anywhere near a comparable deal to what you had before.
Like, what you mean, 2020 or before that?
Before that.
Oh, I was going to say he only had 5.5 million last year.
Is that not the VM for?
Yeah, pretty much. That's his value of what I'm saying.
And that's why I was pissed that Chicago didn't get him. New England got him for pennies on the dollar
at the time, but then also they waited to do it. They let everything play out, and then they came right behind. They was very shrewd in how they pulled it off, but most teams don't do that, and they don't even take a chance. And they took a chance, and Chicago, act like they normally do, got super desperate and jumped the gun and jumped out there and grabbed Nick Foles like the whole league was gonna grab him. Almost looked like the Mitchell Trubisky trade draft thing.
Yeah, no, you're
like, why? What is this fictitious person that's keep up in the bids for you all, where y'all feel y'all got to go all in at the beginning, and
for the wrong guy. We're done with Chicago. We're not gonna get into it.
Yeah, we're trying not to move. We just keep circling back to them because, good, yeah.
All right. Well, I do want to talk about somebody else in the AFC East.
Go ahead.
Let's talk about the New York Jets and their situation with their quarterback, because this is kind of like Philadelphia and Carson Wentz. I feel like the Jets organization has failed Sam Darnold. I don't really, and I could be totally wrong in what I've seen in Sam Darnold but when I watch his film, he makes some plays out there to guys that I don't know how these guys are even on a roster. And you also did it under the guise of Adam Gase. Mm-hmm. So I really feel like he's gotten a pretty bad hand when it comes to his situation, or you're getting drafted by the Jets and they just never figured anything out. They hired the wrong quarterback. I mean, they hired the wrong head coach, and it was just a complete miss from there on. And then you also have COVID this year where you're missing a lot of guys on their defense. I mean, CJ Mosley and a couple other guys on their defense ended up opting out. So it just wasn't a good situation for them this last season. It was his first full season under Adam Gase until he got fired. And the year before, he had the whole mono situation to start out the season, and it just kind of set them back, and they weren't ever able to recover from that. And then this year just was horrible. And then you miss out on Trevor Lawrence. So we think with Jacksonville, they can always make the wrong decision. But It looks like it's going to be them missing out on Trevor Lawrence for getting a win this year. Mm-hmm. And then I just don't know where you go if you don't get Deshaun Watson in a trade.
Well, it looks to be... I think they're going to hold serve. It just seems that way. If they're not, like you said, if it's not Deshaun Watson, I don't think they're going to make any moves to do anything else outside of they're going to take their assets. They're going to take their draft picks. Yeah. They're probably going to look back at Sam Darnold again. And I don't like where the Jets are going with this. I think anything outside of a trade for them is not going to really help them. I mean, they got all the assets
that they go
world,
with,
but it's not going to help the team.
Do you think they draft Justin Fields or whoever the other guy is?
I'm almost certain they're probably going to. It follows the pattern of what they always done. You know, like I said, unless they're trading, I just don't see them going a different direction in the draft. Like all of a sudden they just say, you know what, we're going to go get this offensive lineman and we're going to go that direction.
Well, I think that's what a couple of guys have on their big boards right now, is that they're going to go at Penei Sewell, who's a really good offensive tackle, which would be great because they did get the tackle last year. Mm-hmm. And you pair them up with another one. Whoever needs to move to right tackle, left tackle, wherever you need to put them, do it. Right. And then you get better protection for Sam Darnold or whoever you have as your quarterback. There is a kind of a hope for New York kind of going into next year, just being that they are getting healthier. They're getting some guys back on their, some young guys back. And then also you just got to figure out what's happening with these with the quarterback situation. Because if you're not sold on Sam Darnold, you got to make a decision now. Right. You got to do it and figure out what you're going to do at this point, because it's not going to get any better if you wait. So, I mean, it's just a weird situation for the Jets right now, as everybody's kind of holding their breath until we figure out what's happening with Deshaun Watson.
And I think that's where they are, because it's either they're going to have to go after Deshaun Watson or they're going to have to start making moves after he gets moved. They do anything before that and don't have anything to do with him. That is going to be prototypical Jets football that we've always seen, that makes no sense, that won't work out for them. And they're going to just stay in obscurity. And they're going to just, piss over all of these draft picks and assets and just have a whole bunch of just talented rookies running on. It's just going to be a young team that's just getting the tails handed to them. They're going to continue to be the doormat of not only the NFC East, but AFC East, but the AFC conference altogether. Yep. It's just they're going to be the doormat. If not the league.
2-3 straight years they've been at the bottom.
and nothing's moving the dial whatsoever. Yes, because yes, we, as you know, because I mean, as you probably don't know, not that it matters. Joe Flacco is a free agent, so they lost Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco needs to retire,
right? And now, so Sam Darnold's back up, and to your point, I mean, yeah, I guess, maybe I stand corrected on that. And maybe they will go for offensive lineman, and they're gonna recommit to Sam Darnold, but. I wouldn't be if I'm on the Jets, so I get drafted to the Jets like after, like second, third, fourth round or whatever the case. I'm not all that super happy about what direction y'all going, because it just seemed like, okay, we kind of had to circle the wagons, and now we're back at square one 2 years later. And yeah, that don't usually go well, generally speaking. So if I'm Sam Darnold, like, I think your career exists somewhere else, technically, But this might be this year where they might dial it in, and it's just it's an audition, a dress rehearsal for him going somewhere else next year, and then they play for another draft pick. And
well, we saw how that worked out this year. You ended up not.
That's what I mean. And you're gonna get another number 3 or number 4 pick, and next year, and then Darnold will be gone. There'll be nobody on it. We have no active routes quarterbacks, and then
because I don't even know who I've been trying to keep up with the NCAA and just kind of watching these new prospects. I don't know who's the number 1 next year, like the quarterback wise anyway. Like, I don't know if it's going to be a good quarterback draft next year.
I don't even think the NCAA know that yet.
Yeah.
It hasn't developed yet. And that's troubling, because it's like,
we came into this last season.
Right.
We knew it was going to be Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, maybe one more guy. Those were going to be the ones.
And they draft second, right?
Yeah, they're the number 2.
So, I mean, and I just don't believe either one of those guys is going to move the needle on this team. Like, that's not they have exhausted the top 5 picks type, approach. That's not going to help your team. I'm sorry. That'll help somebody else. It's just, they need to go through free agency. I'm sorry. They need to go a different direction, and they need to be aggressive. So, like you said, if it's not Deshaun Watson, what are we doing?
Do they go for Mitchell Trubisky in the free agency pool? Try to change it up there? I mean, it
can, and that's what I'm saying. That's better than, I think, going after a rookie. I'll take Trubisky over any rookie that, even this Trevor Lawrence.
You take Trubisky over Trevor Lawrence?
If he's coming to the Jets, I don't think he's going to help the Jets. I'm sorry. I don't think any rookie quarterback is coming in and helping this franchise.
I don't think it's going to put them over the top, but I think
he's better. Let me be clear. I don't think any rookie quarterback will come into the league this year and change the Jets franchise.
Gotcha.
That's what I'm saying. That's not speaking against Trevor Lawrence. I don't think he's that good to hear what I'm saying, people. He's not good enough to turn the Jets around.
Yeah.
If he gets drafted by the Jets, we can revisit this. This is just my opinion. This is how I feel. Yeah. Nothing is shown. That's not taken away from this talent pool. That's really speaking to where the Jets organization is. It's going to need that much more help. And I'm sorry, I don't think a rookie quarterback is going to.
What else would they need? I mean, obviously they need to protect Sam Darnold. He keeps getting injured and he keeps getting hit.
Oh, absolutely, offensive line.
Yeah,
100%. I mean, I think that should be their first 3 picks. Should be, if not a quarterback.
Yeah,
and I think they should trade for a quarterback. But if they trade their assets away, whatever. What you need to be picking up, you just need to be picking up 2 to 3 free agents should be your offensive line.
What do you think about them drafting Justin Fields with that number 2 pick, and then from there trading away Sam Darnold to, say, a Chicago, say a New England, say Philadelphia?
And what are they getting in return? Because they would be on their own based on what is in return. It sounds good, but if they can turn that well,
Chicago would probably trade straight up Nick Foles for Sam Darnold, maybe another pick in that deal as well, because you're taking on a contract. I would say Philadelphia, you're trying to create some quarterback competition between Sam Darnold and Jalen Hurts. You would probably give up a couple of picks, and then or a pick. In New England, probably a couple of compensatory picks that they had.
I tried to entertain this in my head. I have little to no faith in the Jets organization of getting this right. Like,
but do you think that if whatever they get back for him, say it's a decent deal back for him, they get a 2 2s and a 3 back for Sam Darnold, for whoever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that would be a comparable compensation? Like, do you think that
for Darnold? Yes, I think so.
Not for Darnold. What I'm saying is, would you feel a little bit better about the Jets organization if they were able to draft a new quarterback that he's young? Yeah, we're restarting. We're hitting the reset button once again, mm-hmm. doing this again, mm-hmm. and then getting some extra compensation for Sam Darnold to try to see what they can do with the new regime.
No, I disagree. I'm saying no. I don't see it helping them. Mm-hmm. This is why it's not. I'm not opposed to what you said. It's just what I'm about to share. What it speaks to me is a treadmill effect. It's just you're just more of the same, just standing, walking in place. We just, it's motion, but not going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's kind of like we just trade one player for the other. You might as well just keep Sam Darnold. At least Sam Darnold knows the system. At least he's been there.
Well, no, he doesn't. There's a new system coming in.
This is what I'm talking about, because that was a fair statement. Exactly. This is a train wreck. I mean, again, I don't think anything in the draft is going to help the Jets in the skill positions. I just don't see that. I think the offensive line, I think they should just go ahead and commit to the offensive line. That's what they should commit to, as far as the draft. Yeah. And the skill positions, please look up go into the free agency pool, because that's where your wins are. That's where your future is. That's what's going to pull you into your future, I should say. That's not where your future lies, but they look, oh, we got all these draft picks, we got all these assets, and look at your roster though. It don't matter what the roster that they have. That's going to supersede anything you bringing in here.
Plus, you lost the only good thing about that. Outside of CJ Mosley, you lost Jamal Adams in the process of everything with his rift with Adam Gase. So, I mean,
and let me say how problematic this is. We talking all about the quarterback, and what does the quarterback need? They need a good line, of course, they need a good line to give them time to protect and time to throw and time to make decisions and run option plays and so on and so forth, and extend the plays and keep the play alive and so on and so forth. Giving yourself an opportunity to win, yada yada yada. Right? Case in point. That's what. Okay, so you would think, man, they just need the good offensive lineman. Yeah, but you look at their roster. You asked the question earlier. What else do they need? I never answered it. They need skill positions, but I'm going to tell you specifically, they need running backs. They don't have nothing.
Oh, it's true.
They are decimated at the run. Because why do you need a run game? Because you want this great quarterback that you want that's being blocked by these great linemen. And why do you want him to be like want them to be able to block for the quarterback to be able to have create time to do what? To run play action. You can't run play action without any running backs. You can't, and you can't even sit there.
Is Frank Gore still?
Oh no, he's retired.
He retired officially?
No, this is last year, unless he's going to decide to come back. But even if he did, are you serious? Are we going to bring back Gore?
I thought he was there this year.
No, this was his last year.
Okay, gotcha. So you retired after this season.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He should be retired now, or unless he decides he wants to play one more season somewhere. But he's supposed to be supposedly retiring.
Gotcha.
But my point was bringing him back is not an option. In the aspect of really, that was the best you could find was let's bring Frank Gore back.
No, I was just when you said that they don't have any running backs, I'm just thinking like who is their running back, because they lost Le'Veon Bell.
They lost Le'Veon Bell.
And it was Frank Gore this year.
And there was some other guy over there. I can't even remember who this guy was.
Doesn't matter. He wasn't good enough.
Not at all.
So, yeah, they've got a pretty complex situation, to say the least. Because the reason why I asked, because I have no clue. I really don't know what direction the Jets should go in, because I don't know if I don't see Deshaun Watson accepting any trade going to the Jets, just because I feel like that is literally just being in the same situation that you were in Houston. So I don't see Deshaun Watson, as you using your analogy, I don't see him hopping to a different treadmill. Like he's going to be in the same exact position. I just don't see that being his. I said
there was number 2 only based on assets. I mean, it would have to be some probably even a 3-team trade. Probably would, but That's why I just put them at Miami. Like, who wants to play in New York? I mean, granted, you have that market, and that's the thing. They have to sell all these other things to get somebody over.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I got them at number 2 on the list, but it's a distant second to him going to Miami. What a situation that Miami can actually present. And at the end of the day, it's Miami.
Yeah. It just sounds like the Jets are the Knicks of the NFL.
That is absolutely what it is. It was a train wreck.
New York just can't catch a break there. All right. Well, we've already talked about Indy quite a bit, kind of gone into their whole situation. Really, the only other topic that I had to cover would be the San Francisco situation. Okay. Depending on them, there's rumors of them wanting to try to get Kirk Cousins, which I don't understand.
There's rumors of this?
Yes, because Kyle Shanahan really wants to work with Kirk Cousins for some reason. So him over Jimmy G, I feel like that is, again, another treadmill analogy. Maybe Jimmy G is better in my opinion, but I guess some people would say Kirk Cousins gives you a better option. I don't know. What are your thoughts on those two to start? There is another thing that I wanted to bring up, but
you said Cousins and who else?
Cousins and Jimmy G
in San Francisco. Yep. Oh gosh,
which one gives you a better opportunity to win in San Francisco? Because that's where it would be.
I'll have to Jimmy G, definitely. I mean, he's been there. He's proven himself.
That's what I thought. It
really wasn't a slam. I mean, it was kind of a slam dunk, but I mean. Yeah, Jimmy G, definitely. That's not taking anything away from Cousins, but at the same time, I'm not adding anything to it. Cousins has to prove something to me. He's an overplayer. He's an overpaid game manager. Sorry, I mean, that's
not even that.
Even lower. Go ahead.
No, he's a game manager for sure. My issue with him is prime time. Like, this is what we get paid to play for. Like, why can't you show up in the time where everybody is watching? Like, you can play on noon games. You are fantastic. You are the game manager of all game managers. You're able to just not mess up the game. You are going to play within the confines of the game plan, and hopefully that game plan gets us a win. Like, you're able to do that, and you're great in that. But we get to that 325 game. It's like, ooh, there's maybe a little bit too many eyes. Definitely a nighttime game, whether it's Monday or Sunday or Thursday night. You suck. Like, where, why, how, what is going on with you? And for Jimmy G, it's like he's only had really one bad game in primetime, and it wasn't even a bad game. It was a Super Bowl. It was one bad throw where he missed Emmanuel Sanders in the middle of the field. Outside of that, he's been very solid. Another game manager who can play in prime time, and that's really all that's the only difference between the two for me is the fact that Jimmy G can do it in prime time. So that's I think that either one can win. It's just I think that you have better opportunity to win with Jimmy G just because he's not going to crack under pressure. Gotcha. But with that was just, it was a small offhand thing that was brought up a couple of weeks ago was the Kirk Cousins, Jimmy G trade rumors and all that stuff, both teams trying to get a reset or what have you. But if San Francisco is not fully sold on Jimmy G and they do end up making that trade to go get Deshaun Watson, which is another destination for Deshaun Watson, where would you see Jimmy G fitting the best?
Couple of places. Definitely if he goes back to New England.
Yeah,
I think that's
a good spot.
Number 2, Chicago.
Yeah,
as he comes back home.
He's from Illinois.
He's from Illinois. A lot of people didn't know that, but yes, that's my list. I had a very short list. I think you should go to 1 or 2 teams. And now, what you just brought up something very interesting. Based on the scenario you just used, I actually like that trade for Minnesota. If they was to get Jimmy G over Kirk Cousins, because anything to get rid of Kirk Cousins and get him off my damn books, I'm good. And Jimmy G is a proven winner. Like you said, he's a game manager. He's not flashy. He's not going to sit here and put up, give you 400-yard games, game in and game out. He might give you that once or twice out the season, but he knows how to win. And it does not have to look good. I mean, it almost comes out of the page or the book of New England, chapter 1, verse 1, winning, and he knows how to win. It does not have to look good, but he knows how to execute. He knows how to, execute down the field and knows how to close out games. Kirk Cousins, he kind of does that, when he feels like it. When the wind blows the right way and it's the right time of day, and it ain't too late in the afternoon, which is the most craziest, bizarre thing ever. And who wants that? He's a head case. Yeah. And no one's ever, nobody wants to call it what it is. I'm like, he's in his head, obviously, because really, you can't do what you do at 1 o'clock at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, and that's like I said, it's the craziest thing to me because you're watching these noon games and you're watching him play, and he's just like, okay, Minnesota's got something here. They can definitely go on a run with this dude. And then you catch them playing the Bears on a Thursday night game, short week, comes out there and just absolutely craps the bed, and you're like, what? I just watched you last week. Where? How? And it's not to say that Chicago is horrible or anything like that. They have their issues though, and I'm probably the most critical of Chicago out of anybody. Watching them every single week, being the biggest fan of them, I know what's wrong with them, and they've had some pretty bad issues in the defensive back area. And when you're getting beat and you're not able to have Adam Thielen and those other guys go off. I mean, year before Stephon Diggs. You're not allowing those guys to go off against Chicago's DB situation. That's a problem, and that's just because your quarterback can't get them the ball because the lights are on for some reason.
Gotcha. And
so that's where I've been watching Minnesota in this situation. I'm just like, why? I didn't understand them giving him a fully guaranteed contract to begin with. I was kind of when they did make that trade make that signing and they got Kirk Cousins, I was like, oh, this is going to be a problem for Chicago. It's going to be Green Bay, Minnesota. Chicago's going to be scratching and clawing to try to get back into this fight. But now, ever since they basically were number 2 in the division a couple of years ago, Chicago has been the number 2 in the division ever since then and haven't let go of it because Minnesota and Detroit can't really field a team to try to compete or try to get out there and try to compete against Chicago or Green Bay. Right. So this division is simultaneously one of the hardest and one of the easiest at the same time. It's just everybody's beating themselves. So that's my thoughts for Minnesota and the Kirk Cousins situation. In San Francisco, I mean, for Jimmy G, like you said, New England would be the number 1 option. Go back to New England where it all started. And you've been fantastic there. You know that offense. You know Josh McDaniels and what they're trying to run. You had success there doing it for 2 games. No, it's not much, but you definitely can win in that system. Right. And then, or like you said, Chicago, I like that as one of the options. It would probably be my number 3-4 option, depending on what happens with Dak Prescott, for who you want to go after. Because I feel like Carson Wentz just has more upside than what Jimmy G has. He had an MVP season. He could do it again if you could figure out how to get him to make that decision making correct again.
I agree with that.
But I would not hate us getting Jimmy G at the end of the day. If there was some 3-team trade that happened where Deshaun Watson goes one way, we give some picks up, they give something back, and we end up with Jimmy G at the end of the day.
Yeah, Jimmy G with a Trubisky backing him up. Not too bad. I'm good.
I can get behind that.
Sun's coming out again now, birds are chirping again. I mean, there's life,
Yeah, but there's a lot of things that Chicago would have to do too. We'd have to go back, figure out a way to either keep Allen Robinson or go get one of the other wide receivers that's going to be a free agent this year. We'd have to figure out the DB situation. You got to really figure out everything there, but that's more of for next week where we talk about the full free agency class.
Yes.
But there's a lot of stuff that needs to happen in Chicago and across the league for the teams to kind of get their foot in the door and try to take that next step to not just be a playoff team, but let's go win a Super Bowl here. So do you have any other
I have a couple of notable free agents that's out there that we haven't discussed, but I mean, it's just because when because we're talking everything pre Deshaun Watson. Because when this Deshaun Watson deal goes down, this is gonna blow up. Everything we talked about is just gonna be dominoes.
Deshaun Watson is definitely gonna be the first domino to fall, because that deal has to happen before anything else, I think. Because
exactly,
if you go out and you sign Carson Wentz or Dak Prescott or somebody else before Deshaun Watson, and there was a possibility that you got Deshaun Watson, there is going to be an absolute uproar for whatever fan base doesn't get him. Exactly. Because whatever the deal is, if you had anything close, anything comparable to that, your fans are going to be pissed. So yeah, I think Deshaun Watson is definitely going to have to be the first deal to get done. Mm-hmm. And then from there, we'll see a lot of those, like you said, dominoes fall pretty quickly thereafter.
Right. And we already know that the most notable free agent quarterback right now is obviously Dak Prescott.
Yes.
We already discussed that. Taking him out of that, but some of the most notable ones that I've seen, I just touched on it, Jacoby Brissett.
Yep.
And he just came off, he was on a 2-year, $15 million contract. So, he's not going to break the bank, and that's kind of where his market value is going to be. He about, 7.5 a year, 8, 9, maybe he gets up to 10,000. I mean, 10 million. $10 million. Nick Foles should be playing for like 10,000. Gosh.
Jesus.
That's fair, too. I mean, really. Okay.
Market value.
People like Jacoby Brissett. Ryan Fitzpatrick is another one. I mean, some of these are going to be game managers, but you have to really look at it for a year or two. Could this guy kind of help transition me into the next rookie class comes up, or just a much better free agent class? Like some of these guys are coming up off these 2 and 3 year deals, or they're at the end of their contracts, or now they need to trade out of a contract. You need to take the last year on. But what can you do in the meantime? That's where the possibility, if it's the right fit, where Ryan Fitzpatrick could possibly give you some give you a few wins and kind of manage and keep your team afloat for a year or two. Yeah. Tyrod Taylor.
Ooh, yeah, I didn't even think about that one. 2 years in a row he got replaced due to injury. So
exactly,
second year was a punctured lung from a cortisone shot. So.
Considering what his injuries were, I would have said he should be the healthiest person coming back.
Yeah,
but don't know. So, and he was on a 2-year, $11 million contract. These guys are not breaking the bank.
Yeah,
and you got players of that caliber. Andy Dalton. In the right situation. I mean, maybe not the first few games, but in the right situation, his market value is $6.8 million. Not going to break the bank here anywhere, I mean, sure. Granted, I'm sure he used to be like at $16.8 million, but these are the comparable people that is in his price range, that's in his market value range, just to give you an idea of what value he really is. Nick Foles, Case Keenum, and Ryan Fitzpatrick. They all pretty much had around the same market value.
The only one, Nick Foles, that's going to have to be a trade. So
just making a point that this is the caliber of talent that's around for that type of price, and Nick, oh gosh. Trying to move this guy.
It's going to be hard, very hard. But I mean, like I said, Philadelphia is going to be one of those situations for him. So, yeah,
this is one I like, but we didn't have to touch on it, and we didn't have to. But I do like this guy, and Jameis Winston. I liked him as a free. I mean, if he's in the right situation, you have something. You don't necessarily, he's going to, oh my God, he's going to take the team and they're going to soar beyond, any thoughts of it. No, nothing like this dude he's well above a game manager. Yeah. He can be at superstar level to some, I think he can find, rank somewhere in the top 20, maybe around 18, 19. And that's good enough in the NFL. And if you got a good enough team put around him, and I think with the right situation, I think Jameis Winston could be a really nice pickup. And he only just came off a 1-year, $1.1 million contract. So
I think he learned a lot sitting behind Drew Brees this last season and the whole Taysom Hill situation between the two of them. I think he definitely does bring something to the table. sort of redeemed himself. I mean, obviously we didn't get to see much of him play. He had one game, I believe, he under his belt. But even in that one game, he sort of redeemed himself from the 30 interception season from Tampa Bay 2 years ago at this point. So I like it. I think that he still has a lot to learn. Like you said, he has to be in the right situation. And I think the right situation, if they want to and kind of have to stash Taysom Hill for a little bit while longer, would be New Orleans.
I agree. I brought his name. I just waited because I was like, man, I think the consensus is he just stays and then takes over. But maybe somebody makes an offer for this guy.
That's the thing for New Orleans, though. Is it sounds like if the rumors are true and Drew Brees is retiring now, he hasn't officially done that yet, but it sounds like that's where he's leaning towards. If that's true, it kind of feels like they're ready to try Taysom Hill full time now. It sounds like Sean Payton's like, well, now I can open up my offense to do everything that I've been thinking about doing with Taysom Hill, not just giving him this one little package. I can build the entire offense around him now. So I think if he does retire, they're going to go with Taysom Hill. Unfortunately, that leaves Jameis Winston to either stay there and be the backup or try to find a different spot. And I don't know who would take him and who he would be able to beat out to get that position. Maybe try to go compete down in Vegas with Derek Carr. Maybe stay within the division still and go to Atlanta and compete with Matt Ryan. I don't know.
Or take the backup role in Miami.
No, yeah, fair.
Only saying because his ties in being in Florida, that would be it's a dark horse. But if he couldn't find a starting job, I could see him possibly finding himself as a backup, either staying in New Orleans or even in Miami. It's just it's a stretch, but I fully expect this guy to be on an active roster and possibly competing for a job.
He definitely should be. I think that this last year definitely has given him enough clout to say, hey, I should be at least on a roster as a high-end backup at least. And like you said, competing for a job for sure. So I have no doubt that he'll be on somebody's roster at the end of this. So
right.
Yeah. There's one other name that I have. I know you still got a list.
This doesn't matter.
You got a couple of guys there, but for me, there's one guy that we haven't touched on at all. And I think that he needs to get talked about as one of the possibly best free agent quarterbacks that's on the market right now. But a lot of people don't want to touch him with a 10-foot pole.
Who was that?
Colin Kaepernick.
Oh, wow. And when was the last time he played?
I think this would now be 4 or 5 years since he's played.
Ooh, okay,
it's tough.
Ahead. You have the floor.
I just think that he's stayed in shape. I mean, obviously not game shape. You can't do that without being on an active roster here. But the NFL has opened up the opportunity to let him back in with everything that happened with the Jacob Blake shooting and everything in that whole situation. They've even reintroduced him into the EA Madden game.
Did they?
So like, it's actually pretty big that like the NFL has completely try to reintegrate him to the NFL. So,
oh, you gotta like these PR moves they doing.
100%. That was the biggest PR stunt I've ever seen. But at the end of the day, it does give them the opportunity for Colin Kaepernick to say, "Hey, I would love to try out for a team. Whoever is willing to just allow me to come in and play football. He doesn't have to say anything about any of his political views. He doesn't have to do anything, say anything inflammatory, to have a floor to talk about this, that, the other." The NFL has embraced this year talking about social justice issues and allowing the players to have a voice and whatnot. So the guy that you kind of have disowned and buried over the last few years for doing exactly that, talking about social justice issues, bringing him back, I think would definitely be a huge PR move for whatever team decides to do it. If any team ever decides to do it.
Right.
Plus, I think it would allow I mean, he possibly has still something left to give the game, just as a quarterback standpoint, not even getting into just like leadership and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Just as a quarterback, he's still 32, 31 years old. I mean, I don't think he's that old.
I'll tell you right now, 33.
33. So, I mean, Tom Brady's playing until 44 now. You got Drew Brees retiring at 40. Ben Roethlisberger's 38 or something like that. Aaron Rodgers 38. Like, he's still got a few years, I think, not in his prime, but definitely can play at a decent level. Better than a few of these guys that have started this year. Gardner Minshew, I'd take Colin Kaepernick over him.
Gardner Minshew gonna be in the league next year?
I don't believe so. Okay. Maybe as the backup in Jacksonville with Trevor Lawrence out there.
Just curious.
I mean, I'd possibly even take Colin Kaepernick over the Teddy Bridgewater situation in Carolina. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater has a lot of upside there. Honestly,
we're trying to move
Colin Kaepernick over Ben Roethlisberger right now. He did not play well down the stretch. He hasn't played well over the last few seasons
and was injured last year.
So I definitely think that if they're ready to move on, he's ready to play. Colin Kaepernick can fit in that situation quite well and have Dwayne Haskins backing him up as he's already over there now. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's a few teams with starting quarterbacks that don't have it as well as Colin Kaepernick might have it. And we don't know. He'd have to come in, train. If he was able to get on a roster, he's able to go through training camp and all that stuff and actually find himself on that QB list, that depth chart, I think that he could beat out a few guys at the end of the day. And
what would be your short list for teams even if that became a reality?
If that's a possibility, I mean, always Chicago, because anything's better than the situation we have right now. Washington, probably. New Orleans. Drew Brees retires. I mean, they'd have to consider it. Go back to San Francisco. No, I'm kidding. I don't know.
You're killing me. You keep not saying this. Dallas.
Oh, yes, Dallas. I'm always thinking with Dallas that they're re-signing Dak Prescott. So I
do too. Yeah. But the fact that he didn't.
Yeah.
I'm just because at this point, Jerry Jones.
Right, Dallas.
Don't put it. I mean, if it don't happen, don't be surprised.
No, and I would actually. You're right. Dallas is actually one of the better teams because I mean, if anybody's willing to take a controversial person, it's Jerry Jones. I mean, he's taking Greg Hardy. He's taking what's his name, Aldon Smith. Mm-hmm. Like he's willing to give you another chance. Now, I do know that Jerry Jones did take quite an offense to some of the things that Colin Kaepernick has come out and said about owners and whatnot. But at the end of the day, if he is looking to get a championship and you lose out on Dak Prescott and you're looking to keep your team at least afloat or even giving them the possibility of playing some successful football, Colin Kaepernick might be a guy that you can go after.
Yeah, and you want to stay in the good graces of your PR. What better way than to
100%?
Use that to your advantage and make yourself look good in this process, Jerry Jones.
And don't try to silence him. Let him talk about those things in the post-game presser. I mean, a lot of guys are still doing it in the first place, so allow them to continue doing that.
Right. Well, I mean, those were my most notables. I mean, I have many names on this list, but they were just names on the list. If we got to them and if it came up in our conversation, so be it. These are more so a few months from now, these guys will probably still be free agents.
Yeah.
This list is the after draft list, but I was just making sure I had more than enough people here to talk about. But if I'll conclude with one person, which he was a notable name at one point, but considering in the sample size of last year, this is probably going to be laughable. But believe it or not, Robert Griffin III is a free agent.
All right, laughable.
He came out. He just finished a 2-year, $4 million contract. For playing.
He will get one more 2-year, $4 million contract to be a backup somewhere, I think. But outside of that, I don't think he's going to be competing for a starting job anytime soon.
Oh, Not necessarily a starting job, but just if you needed a backup,
Yeah.
you know.
I could see him. He shouldn't be out of the league just
for what
yet.
he was is why I mentioned him. He's getting the honorable mention just because for who he was.
Yeah.
And for a short period of time, being a number 2 pick overall, and kind of, you know, up until he got kind of did a Deshaun Watson, got snuffed out early in his first year, and he was on MVP pace. I mean, not rookie of the year pace. I'm sorry. But yes, that was the other one. I mean, because other names are like, come on, Blake Bortles, Mike Glennon.
Yeah.
These are not people. Yeah. These are not on your. This is not names on your board in the war room. I'm sorry, it's just not. You know.
All right.
But I think we've covered quite a array between trades and free agency of possibilities and destinations and scenarios that can play out in the next few months. I mean, granted, I know you are like myself. Every alert that come across my phone, oh my God, is it Deshaun Watson? Right. We just, oh my God, I'm so desperate for some good football information. I know coming right after the Super Bowl. We're like 1 week out. I'm sorry, I'm a football fan.
Yeah.
And like I need that like baseball. 12 months out of the year. Yes, right, baseball. In the MLB, you all have just completely got a monopoly on y'all off season, of y'all 1 month off season that y'all have, and then y'all right back in some spring training nonsense in the mid dead of winter.
Yeah.
How does that work? y'all cover every month of the year. It's like,
it's
baseball needs to be trimmed down.
Yeah, for 100%. That's again another topic that we can discuss.
I digress. That's just baseball's too long.
Well, we can wrap this up. I mean, we want to thank you guys for listening. We kind of rambled on. Like you said, we covered a wide array of topics for the quarterback carousel here. But at the end of the day, I mean, we are going to continue week after week bringing you more and more content. So just stay tuned for all of that. I think next week, we will be discussing the free agency as a whole, kind of a overview of that.
Oh, that's gonna be fun.
Yeah. So that we'll discuss that. Probably get more into just like what some of these teams should be looking for, what they should be eyeing moving forward.
I got a lot to say about next week.
Yeah.
Oh, I got a lot to say.
Perfect. So definitely stay tuned for that. We're gonna have a fun, interesting conversation there. But again, thank you guys for listening, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
All right. You have a good day. Bye.